promised brutality and hardcore action, but all you're getting is a quiet scuffle. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're knocking off our picks for the top 10 worst fighting games. Fighting games are meant to have us riled up and ready to fight, just not actually hitting other people. We're only looking at the worst of the worst, no matter how obscure. Our only exclusionary criteria being no pornographic games.
Even Joey Styles can pull that move off!
Typically, fighting games are defined as having a one-on-one style of gameplay, so there shall be no beat-em-ups found on this list. Number 10, Kasumi Ninja.
Show no mercy.
Let's start things off with a poor man's Mortal Kombat clone, something you'll see a lot of today.
Habaki wins.
An exclusive title for the Atari Jaguar. You could tell this thing was gonna be a stinker well before the fighting started.
One.
Characters look like they came from a Stereotypes 101 handbook, highlighted by a Scottish Highlander who flashes his kilt to shoot fireballs. The backgrounds look like a series of stock photos, and the fatalities are ridiculous, cause you know that was a trend at the time. Number 9, Street Fighter the movie, the game. A fighting game based on a movie, based on a game. Now isn't that something? You remember how Street Fighter was all colorful and fast-paced? Well, you can say goodbye to all that in this dingy, digitized Mortal Kombat lookalike without a single hint of irony. There are actually two versions of this game, with the home version trying to emulate the classic series, and the arcade version being, something else. Street Fighter the movie plays like any other fighting classic, with all of the fun and flow taken out of it, and lives on as Capcom's most embarrassing entry into the series. That and the movie itself, of course.
You win!
Number 8, Tattoo Assassins.
Round 1, begin.
Yet another fighting game that utilizes digitized sprites that has you beating up opponents until you can deliver a gruesome finishing move. Does that sound familiar? We're not saying that Mortal Kombat has the patent on this look and style, but that No Mercy font looks awfully familiar. What are not so familiar are the controls or the stiffness to every single one of its boorishly named characters. It's dull in tone and just plain weird in execution. And the 2,000 plus fatalities the game boasts are clearly exaggerated and not very well animated. The only good thing we can say about this is you can watch a Nancy Kerrigan lookalike fart her opponents to death. Number 7, Ultraman, Towards the Future. Nothing beats some Japanese monster fighting, unless they look about 5 feet tall. Shortness aside, this fighter has much bigger problems, such as its very high difficulty and poor, repetitive sound effects. The difficulty is the real kicker though, as combatants are slow and plodding on the ground, but can fly for miles off screen if they jump. Based off a really campy show from the 1960s, it only makes sense that this would be ultra crappy as well. Number 6, Rise of the Robots. Sure, it looks nice, but that's pretty much all it has. In 2043, you play a cyborg, who is a bipedal humanoid fighting against computer virus-infected robots. Or at least that's what we think is happening, since the plot is a complete mess. I don't know if you caught that, but this all means that there's only one playable character. This game was massively overhyped at the time of release, and boasted features that aren't even in the game. There was no 360-degree movement as promised, and it boasted that opponents learn from their mistakes, which they don't.
Opponents actually learn from their mistakes and read your moves.
Plus, on some CD-ROM versions, you can't even jump over your opponent. Mega fail. Number 5, The Simpsons Wrestling. There was once a point when wrestling was immensely popular. There was also a point when The Simpsons were popular too, but these two forms of entertainment should never meet again. Aside from the unsettling feeling of watching Homer mercilessly beat his wife, the game is a convoluted mess of broken animations with no focus on how fights occur. Not to mention its poor hit detection and polar-like difficulty, ranging from hard to stupid sexy Flanders.
I'm usually a kind-hearted guy, but now you piss me off.
Number 4, balls. What on earth is this? It's actually the perfect example of graphics over gameplay, or at least we think, since aside from the nice animations, it still looks kinda terrifying. Obvious enough are the characters that all look like Andy Serkis filming Caesar's motions, but we think that even we could program a fresher fighting game than this clumpy monkey. Indistinguishable characters, messy gameplay, and thick sound design make this a no-go. Dual action pampering, what does that even mean? Number 3, Fighter Within.
Round 1, fight!
Any fighting game that uses the Xbox Kinect is a doomed endeavor.
Ring out!
We're gonna make a dangerous bet and say that most gamers aren't MMA fighters either. But that's okay because you don't have to be with this simplistic and frankly ugly fighting simulator. If you can call this a simulation, that is, cause combatants start off slapping each other for about 30 seconds until someone accidentally wins and then you get to sit through a 2-minute loading screen. Sounds like fun, right?
First kick!
Worst of all, this is a Kinect game we're talking about. Not the most responsive platform for a fighting game.
KO! You win!
Number 2, Shaq Fu. He's a basketball player, rapper, actor, and now video game character. But if Shaquille O'Neal had to choose against being one of these, we all know which one it would be.
You don't like Shaq, frankly, I don't give a damn. I know I got skills, man. I know I got skills, man.
Famous for being as terrible as it is ridiculous, this little gem stars Shaq as a kung fu expert fighting mystic demons in a far-off world. What's a shame for Shaq is how bad he is at actually fighting, as the game's terrible controls and brutal difficulty make it almost impossible to beat the first opponent. But hey, if you don't like your copy of Shaq Fu, you can send it to ShaqFu.com to be liberated from existence. Yes, we actually found a game worse than Shaq Fu, but before we endure that sucker punch, here are a few dishonorable mentions.
To me, the quintessential stud muffin during what promises to be an extreme night of wrestling.
Number 1, Catfight. Truly the worst fighting game ever made would have to be one of the most broken and confusing. Martial artist Catalin Zamir plays Che Li, but that's completely meaningless when you realize none of the characters are named. In a genre where characterization, pacing, and excitement are the key feature, it's clear that the developers forgot about all of this after going through Microsoft Office Word art for the 15th time. You can have more fun with your friends trying to guess how many Worst Game Ever Made awards this travesty won than actually playing it. And there are a lot of those awards. Fun fact, this game's performance isn't capped, which means if you tried to play it on a computer today, it'd run so fast that it's even more unplayable than usual. Do you agree with our list?
Ill diddly ill yeah.
Which fighting game would you tout as the worst ever? For more hard-hitting top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Check it out. Win. Perfect.